I've talked so much about this thing now that we're officially actually reviewing it. I don't know how to feel. It's everything I've ever wanted and more. Hits all the Apple check marks. Fast, intuitive, high quality features like 3D touch, improved selfie camera, dual camera on the back, both cameras shoot in 4K. We've got stereo speakers, IP67 water resistance, even longer battery than before, and 256 gigabytes of internal storage. Yes, I intend on using it. And hey, you know, it doesn't explode. The real question that I'm facing is what's not to like about it. Lack of a headphone jack? Yeah, no. I've talked about that in so many videos already. I'm not even gonna bring it up here. All I'll say is I haven't missed the headphone jack in the slightest. I've not come across one scenario where having it would have been helpful. So why don't I just start off with some things I didn't expect I'd like very much, but turned out to be really useful. First of all, stereo speakers. And I know I've said in the past when I was reviewing my Nexus 6P that stereo speakers were nice, but really kind of unnecessary because you shouldn't be using phone speakers in public. They're annoying, they sound weird. You should only use them if you're alone. Well, since then I've spent a lot of time alone in a darkness pit of despair where I'm not able to talk to a lot of people, and I'm just left to let technology comfort me by just trying to unbox as many things as I can and read comments that are hopefully encouraging. Not all of them have been. So given that, I'm gonna take back that comment I gave about the Nexus 6P. Stereo speakers are great because you don't have to cup your hand on the side of the phone anymore, and they get very, very loud, and I think actually all phones should have it. It's a great feature, but apparently Google didn't think so because they got rid of it on the Google Pixel. So you're off to a great start. Other thing I didn't really expect to notice was the change in design. I know a lot of us have said that not much has changed, but I feel like after using it for a while, it has noticeably, given I still have my iPhone 6s around. The entire border of the phone while you're holding it used to be a shade of gray or white or silver, whatever you had. And now with the new matte black color, it is a black border that goes really well with the glass display. So as soon as you pick it up, you do notice a difference. It still shines. It's not as shiny as jet black. However, jet black is not durable at all. As soon as you even touch that thing with some other metal, it's gonna scratch, you're gonna notice it, and you're also getting a ton of fingerprints with jet black. So this keeps your iPhone looking durable and clean without breaking or shattering or getting fingerprints like that. That keeps a dark, sleek look that makes it blend very well as a device. It's my new favorite Apple color. I wish it was on all their products. This thing has not got a single ding on it, and I don't think it will. Given since it's matte black, getting a little ding on it is not gonna show up as easy as it did before on the 6S. With even space gray models, it won't be seen as easy. And I do intend on going caseless. I have not used a case in the 2 weeks I've owned it. I believe it's going to retain this durability. I also think the absence of the cell bands on the back is very noticeable change. Now, whenever I look at an iPhone 6 and 6S, it's very obvious that there's a lot going on the back of the phone, and not so much anymore. It seems very solid, very minimalistic image. There's just a flat out, not a lot of things happening on the back of the phone, which is rare these days. There's usually a clutter of things on the back of a phone, and this kind of reminds me of the iPod Touch, except even more elegant on the back. So I'm a fan of that. The camera hump on the back has been rounded off with the aluminum, which I believe helps with water resistance. And I've noticed the rocking of the phone when it's lying on a flat surface is a lot less noticeable than before, because this dual camera takes up a bit more space when you set it down and it's rounded off. So very nice little touch that I appreciate. The third thing I didn't think I'd like that much is the not real home button that doesn't actually click. I've gotten really used to that and I prefer it now. It's much more responsive. Like you could do things like close apps before they even open. I don't know why you need to do that, but it just feels like the phone hears you a lot better than it did before. And personally, it makes the phone feel a lot more solid to me. Whereas when I go back to my iPhone 6 Plus and I do press the home button and it actually goes down, it makes me feel like it's a cheaper device a little bit. This to me makes it feel a bit more premium, and I love that you can change the taptic feedback you get when you press that home button. It's definitely a learning curve, and I can understand why anyone out there wouldn't like it, but I assure you anyone can get used to it. It's very simple. I like to actually keep my home button at the lightest taptic setting, just because that makes me realize, yes, this is a 7 Plus, and you can feel the tap, but it's not quite a giant click like it was on the 6 Plus, which means it's unique to that now. I feel like that is one of the signature trademarks that is hard to miss when you're using an iPhone 7. Next, this feature really isn't new to the iPhone 7, but it was new to me because I didn't have a 6S, and that is raise to wake, which means anytime you lift the phone up, it automatically goes to your lock screen. I always imagined that being annoying and having it go off all the time when I didn't want it to, so I planned on turning that off, but as soon as I unboxed it and it started working really easily, it always knew. I was like, yeah, I kind of want to keep this on, and I am. Also, the buttons on the side of the 7 Plus also feel like they click a little bit more. Maybe they protrude out of the device a little bit more than before, but a tap feels a lot more like a click now, which is a subtle little change, but I notice it, and I think it's for the better. I really like that. Also, if anyone out there wants fast charging on their iPhone, I recommend using a 12-watt iPad Pro charger charger, which you can buy separately on the Apple Store or on Amazon. It doesn't have to be Apple's. If you plug that into here, it charges very, very fast. Back when I had my Note 7, rest in peace, that had fast charging, and when I put it next to my iPhone 6 Plus with the 12-watt charger, they both charged at the same speed. So Apple doesn't really call it fast charging, but fast charging exists. And that's what I do with this, and that helps me charge this thing very, very quickly. Of course, the iPhone 7 has the Apple A10 chip, which means I feel absolutely no lag on this device at all. Everything opens instantly, like the camera, the photos, the apps, can take pictures instantly. The noticeable difference of the A10 chip is how many more apps play at like 60 frames a second now. On my iPhone 6 Plus, I can film things at 60 frames a second, but I couldn't watch them at 60 while I was recording. On this thing, you can. As you're recording 60 frames a second, you can view it at full res, also being played back at 60 frames a second, which is a very nice upgrade that makes your phone feel unstoppable. Even apps like Apple Music and Twitter, all kinds of social media apps, sometimes when you're opening a window or you're letting tweets load at the top and you hit new tweets and they flings you up to the top, those before didn't run at 60 and now they do. So subtle little things like that make you notice your phone is running a lot faster. In terms of the Geekbench scores, this phone is unparalleled. After doing quite a bit of research, I couldn't really find a phone out there that even came close to beating this thing's Geekbench scores. Benchmarks aren't everything, but it's still cool to know this is the fastest smartphone you can buy. There's a real subtle change they did that makes a big impact, and that is the newly designed Taptic engine. So there's a lot of times your phone will use the Taptic engine when you're doing certain interactions on the device. iPhone 6s users know about this, but with the new Taptic engine on the iPhone 7, it uses the taps even more for things you didn't even think about. Like if you're selecting a year or you're selecting a time, anytime you're kind of in that scroll wheel kind of animation, it will tap for every year you pass or every time you pass. I don't know how to describe it, but when you're scrolling through it, it's going good, 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 good. It makes you feel a lot more immersed. Like when you bring up Control Center, it taps you. When you bring down the Notification Center, it taps you when it hits the ground. And it's not heavy, it's not distracting, it's just tiny little taps that make the phone feel like, not the phone, it makes you feel more immersed in what's going on. I guess I can kind of compare it to a controller for a console that vibrates when certain things in the game are going on. It kind of brings you into it. That's what this feels like. It's a nice, real subtle change that makes a big impact, and it makes you realize this is the 7. This is not on the 6S. Overall, all I can really phrase it as is the 7 Plus has a more solid feel. Given this phone wants you to press harder on the display because it can understand that kind of input. And the home button doesn't click anymore, but it knows what a click feels like, and it knows when the pressure is being put on it. In other words, there's very little accidental home button presses. It's probably even a little heavier than my last phone, given the dual camera and the removal of the headphone jack. So there's just more stuff in this overall. And that's what makes it, I think, feel more solid to me. All of this is great, but I know the main reason a lot of people want to see reviews of the 7 Plus is because we want to compare that camera. The camera is what we use often on these flagships, and it's often the difference people put between budget smartphones and premium smartphones. It's how good the camera is. And okay, you know, I have to be quite honest, I am an Apple sheep. I am very biased, I understand. However, the truth about the iPhone 7 Plus camera is, it is the best camera to ever exist on a smartphone, and if anyone ever thinks otherwise, I will prove them wrong today. And there's no possible chance you can find a smartphone camera out there that will make me believe this is not the best on the market right now. So, why don't I put my money where my mouth is? So here's what most of the tech reviewers out there do, right? Okay? They get the S7 Edge, they get the Google Pixel, and they get the iPhone 7. They take the same exact photo with all three phones and put them next to each other in the video, right? And they say one of them gets colors a little right, and one of them gets lighting a little better. And look, maybe when it's under a magnifying glass, you can see those kinds of differences, maybe. But here's the bottom line. These are phone cameras. Why are we grading them like we're professional photographers? We're not. This is things everyday people use. If you're a professional videographer or photographer, you're not looking for a smartphone camera to do your work with. Those people are gonna buy actual cameras that have interchangeable lenses, different sensors. That's when we can grade it based on little lighting and coloring changes. In that sense, it makes sense to judge things very closely because you are a professional. These are smartphones. That means to me, if you only look at it for a second and you don't really see any drastic differences between the photos, then they are essentially the same. You shouldn't decide which phone you buy over that tiny little difference you notice if you zoom in on a picture, see that one gets a little coloring right. Okay, that is the better smartphone. No, don't do that. That's not how you should buy a smartphone, because when you take a picture and you show it to someone, they're not going to compliment you on, wow, that color looks a lot better on that one. I could tell by the slightly richer detail. You're showing your Irish friends, I guess. What the iPhone 7 Plus does that most flagships can't do is the telephoto shots. This fixes my biggest complaint with smartphone cameras. It's the reason I don't use them all the time. I'm fine with the resolution and quality. I think we've got it with the megapixels. We've got crisp images. In terms of color and lighting, they're all basically fine. fine. There's not one that gets it drastically better than the others. I also don't think low light photography is a common enough occurrence for it to be a deal breaker. Most photographers will tell you that the answer to dealing with low light is to not find a camera that can do extreme low light. It's going to be add more light to the shot. I'm not going to change the camera I buy because lighting is not good in my room. I'm going to buy a light fixture to add this. There's the problem. That doesn't mean buy a whole new camera because low light lenses are incredibly expensive, whereas this little fixture cost me 20-30 bucks. So low light photography, yeah, it's nice. It's not a common scenario for me, so that's why I'm not bringing it up as much as a fact. But the most common scenario I think all smartphone owners have is trying to get a picture of something that's further away. Also, photographers professionally are always trying to cut the fat out of shots. If you go to a wedding or something, you'll see most of the time they're zooming in on things. They're not trying to get as wide as possible. That doesn't look cinematic. You want to get close-ups on people. Smartphones can't do that because anytime you want to get up close to a subject, you have to physically just bring your phone as close as possible because these lenses are not very closed in. They're meant to capture a broad amount of space. Most smartphone angles are wide. However, with the iPhone 7 Plus's telephoto lens, it's a whole new ballgame. You can film and take photos with both lenses, and while you're taking video, cut between the lenses if you want to get a close-up on something while not having to do this on your subject. That makes a huge impact on all photos, on all video, and it's a noticeable one. It's not something I put next to the S7 Edge and look really closely at which one gets better. No, this flat out zooms in twice as far and doesn't lose any image quality. Pixel S7 flat out cannot do that. And I know there's phones like the LG V20 and stuff with an ultra wide angle. I think that's neat. My point is, I think photographers are more interested in getting closer shots, and there's not as many scenarios where you need to get ultra wide. There are far more scenarios where you need to get closer to your subject. So this is more useful in my opinion. That is an obvious benefit it has over the competition, as well as an option that's amazing. The dual camera also allows you to have this amazing feature that Apple calls portrait, which is a terrible name, by the way, because now you can take portrait photos in landscape. They should have just called it the good feature, because that's what it is. With portrait mode, you're using the telephoto sensor to capture the image, but also using the wide angle camera to kind of create a 3D map so that your phone knows depth of things it's looking at. And that allows it to take some incredibly cinematic photos that are unparalleled on the competition easily. I try to switch to portrait mode as many times as I can, and it takes some amazing photos that can easily pass as DSLR quality. They're zoomed in, they get what's in focus really in focus, and they blur a lot of the background. Every single one of my friends I took a picture with in portrait mode, they instantly changed their profile picture on Facebook. They're like, wow, that looks great. And you know what? I haven't seen the S7 or the Pixel come anywhere close to these kinds of pictures. They can brag all they want about how they get colors and lighting. I don't think most people will notice that, but they will notice a portrait mode shot. That alone, I think, is a game changer in terms of cameras on phones. Now, I also know there's some other dual camera phones out there that use the telephoto lens as well, but here's my counter to that. Even if you matched somehow, you matched the quality of the iPhone 7 Plus's camera with all the portrait mode shots and the 4K video, the optical video stabilization, you get all of that. When I take photos on my iPhone, they're automatically backed up to the cloud where they show up on my iPad, my Mac, my Apple TV, and even my watch. All autonomously. I don't even think about it. Can't really do that on Android because Android doesn't cover all of that ecosystem. Also, Apple has AirDrop, which means anyone who has an Apple product, I can easily, without internet connection, share it to them. Where on an Android phone, I would need some kind of internet to use for that. Run up my data plan with video and stuff like that. Those are things I can only do on here. So the infrastructure around this great camera is also unparalleled. Now, I should mention that the aperture is not as low for the telephoto lens because that's how most lenses work. It's very hard to get a low aperture if you're looking at less light, right? If you're zoomed in, there's less things to work with. The telephoto lens will not do as well in low light situations as the wide angle, so sometimes that mode is unavailable, and what'll happen is it'll just crop in on wide, so it's like, why don't you just gray it out? However, I have rarely come into those scenarios. It's still a great lens, and it works in fairly low light conditions, just not as good as the wide. Also, the front-facing camera is newer and pretty good. It's good. Now, I've established that this phone is amazing, though a common reason a lot of people are saying they don't want to get it is that it's not a huge upgrade. It's basically the same as the 6, and it's disappointing, right? I think there is. I'm gonna counter you to that. The reason people are saying it's not a major upgrade is just because it's the first time in a while we haven't had a screen change. We've kind of been spoiled with the amount of resolution changes we've had in the past couple of years. Remember the move from the iPhone 4S to the 5. The screen got taller, okay? So that's a very, very obvious change. The moment you pick it up, up, you notice the screen is taller. Everyone made those iPhone 7 jokes. Well, I guess we're up to 7 already, but where the phone is really tall because that's what the future is. It was hard to miss that. Then remember when we switched from the 5S to the 6? We got 2 sizes for the first time, both of which were bigger than the 5. So that, of course, was a blatantly obvious update. As soon as you saw the new iPhone, you knew which generation it was because of that screen change. The pluses were only on the 6s. So now we're past that. Now, since Apple is pretty satisfied with the size of the screens, and I think their consumers are too, I don't know of many people who want it to be bigger than this. I kind of think it'd be cool if it was. And a lot of people are just fine with the 4.7-inch version too. They don't need it any bigger or smaller. We've made the upgrade to the iPhone 7 and the screen sizes are the same. So the changes made are a lot harder to notice. But they're still there, and I think you just need to understand that once you get it, you'll appreciate them more, even if they're not blatantly obvious. The longer you use the 7, the more changes you notice over time, and you'll start to really appreciate it. So, to give you an example, let's go back a little bit to the iPhone 5S and that upgrade to the 6 and 6 Plus. That was a big day, right? I remember it. How many changes did the iPhone go through? First, we got 2 new sizes. Second, we got a fully aluminum back, so no more glass on the back. Improved cameras, as always. We got a speed boost, as always. A 128GB model, that was the first of its kind. They moved the power button to the side so that your thumb could reach it easier. And I guess that's it. They changed about 6 things. I guess you could say maybe 7. They improved battery life, but that's, kind of a given. That was a major upgrade, right? Few changes, but big difference. Now let's fast forward to today. How many changes did we go through from the iPhone 6S to the iPhone 7? So first of all, we got 2 new colors, matte black and jet black. Noticeable, obvious changes. 2, we removed the cell band. So we got an aluminum clean back. 3, improved cameras, of course. 4, speed, yeah. 5, 256GB model. 6, IP67 water resistance. 7, stereo speakers. 8, no headphone jack. And 9, redesigned home button. Oh, in 10, we got a whole new Taptic engine. And I might even add in that W1 chip that supports AirPods that's only on the 7. That's not a huge change though. So like 10 and a half. Now let's just say 10 changes that we had with the iPhone 7. Whereas with the iPhone 6, that big upgrade only had about 6 changes. However, I know at the surface, those changes are more obvious. So if you're interested in buying the iPhone 7, remember, on the surface, there doesn't seem to be much different, but as you use it, there's a whole lot of upgrades that went on. I think a lot of you would appreciate it as you went on with it. Another reason a lot of people don't want to buy the iPhone 7 is they want to wait for the iPhone 8 because that's going to be the anniversary update, right? 10 years since the first iPhone, so that one's going to be good. Apple will go all out there. Okay, here's what we know about the iPhone 8. Here's the big change. OLED display, glass back, maybe pad charging like on Samsung's phones. That's about it. Okay, so when you're around your other friends, you can tell them that colors look a little bit new. The blackers are black. Was that a problem before? I guess, yeah, I've done that bit. OLED's kind of cool, but it's only noticeable the first hour of use, and then your eyes adjust, you got used to it, you're not even thinking about the fact that your phone's running OLED. And the glass back, which means you're gonna get fingerprints, and if you drop your phone, you can shatter the back of it now too, and it'll probably be a bit more slippery. Also that fake wireless charging, I call it portless charging, where Apple will sell a $100 pad that saves you 5 seconds by just placing it on there instead of doing this. Plug. Saves you a little bit of time, but all the Samsung people I know don't buy those because they don't care. It's an option they don't really find necessary. So I'd like to say to all of you, go for features while this thing is still new. I don't see the point in waiting a whole nother year for something that's just going to be a tad bit better. Treat yourself now because overall it's a well-rounded upgrade even from the 6S. Although I do suggest going with the 7 Plus just alone for that camera. I could understand if someone doesn't like Plus models and they're just going from a regular iPhone 6S to 7, it's gonna probably be as less noticeable as it is with this because seriously the camera is insane. It's the best camera ever on a smartphone, and no, you cannot prove it otherwise. So I'm glad I had enough to talk about with the iPhone 7 Plus. What changes would I make to it in the future? Only thing I wish it had was USB-C. That's a whole nother video I need to talk about. I know a lot of you don't think Apple will put USB-C on their devices, their mobile ones, the iPad and iPhone. My question is, why did they initiate it with the MacBook? Does anyone know of a device out there that adopted USB-C before the 2015 12-inch MacBook? So it's like, well, Apple started it, so why wouldn't they finish it? There's your little topic for the comment section we can argue about. If you disagree and you think there's another phone out there that's way better than the 7 Plus, you're wrong. Feel free to dislike and leave. Thanks for sticking around the longer videos. I appreciate it. You guys make all of this possible. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.